sometimes feel like I'm the only one who's feeling the pressure of the rising cost when it comes to groceries. Hey, you are not the only one. I feel like I can't let go though of the brands that I like, especially when it comes to coffee. I just don't see myself going back to re-coffee, but everything is just so expensive. What would you do? Hey guys, welcome to What Would Andy Do, where you share some of your real life money and adulting scenarios, and in exchange, I share what I would do in your shoes. That's exactly what's happening today. Thank you so much to the people who participated by sharing some of their real life scenarios. I know it isn't easy, guys, to trust me because I'm a stranger to most of you, but trust that this is an anonymous process, and I really appreciate you sharing what you are going through so others can learn from it, and also for trusting me with my perspective, because that's honestly what it is. You are trusting me with my perspective on what I would do if I was in your shoes. So how it's going to go down is that I am going to read word for word what the individuals have said and what they are going through, and then in exchange I am going to respond with exactly what I would do if I were in their shoes. Now guys, you need to keep me honest here because I'm so used to giving advice and sharing information, but I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be an honest, candid response of what I would do if I was exactly in their shoes. And believe it or not, sometimes what you would do personally and what you advise someone to do is two completely different things. Okay, let's go for it. The first one says, what would Andy do in this instance? We are a group of women in a stokvel. Whenever I get my payout, it's as if people are waiting to get a loan from me. I mean the ladies from the stokvel. Obviously, at the beginning of the stokvel, we all get our allocations, so we know where someone is. So I think she means when someone is getting their money. It's driving me crazy to a point where I feel like I want to pull out of this entire thing and play as another person so that they don't know it's me. Whew, all right. Firstly, I completely understand where this individual is coming from. And what I would do in this situation is, number one, when you are in a stokvel, chances are that you are in a stokvel with people that are close to you and whom you have a relationship with. So this could be colleagues, this could be family members, it could be friends, etc. That's normally how stokvels work, or at least the stokvels that I've been a part of, there was some close relation with the people in the stokvel. So for this reason, I don't think it's a good idea to simply just walk away. The reason for that is because these people clearly have boundary issues, right? And they are not being considerate. And even if you walk away from that stokvel, they could still ask me for money, right? Because I'm putting myself in this position. They could still ask me for money from the other stokvel that I joined, or even from my income, or from some other initiative when they know that I've made money. So what I would do is, number one, if it's all of them, I would sit them down as a group and I would address my concerns as well as my feelings like this. Guys, I really appreciate being a part of the stokvel, and I do want to continue, and it's actually allowed me to work towards and achieve some of the goals that I have. So I do have a strict budget in terms of how I would like to use this money, and the stokvel money directly feeds into that. Now, my challenge is the fact that when this money comes out, there are certain people who borrow money from me and who want some of this money, which really takes me off in terms of what I would like to achieve. So there you are setting the scene, because ultimately I'm assuming that these are people that I care about and that I still want to have in my life, even though they are making me feel uncomfortable. So I would set the scene in terms of where I am at, how this is affecting me, what it's stopping me from doing. And secondly, I would then say I would appreciate it if this would stop because of what I've mentioned, right? How it's negatively affecting me. I would appreciate it if this would stop because it's making me super uncomfortable. Over and above that, setting those boundaries and expectations, if they continue to ask me for money, even after I've said that, I would gladly say no with confidence, knowing that I've already set the scene in terms of why I can't help, and that person is now overstepping the line. So I would just simply say no, and I would stay in the stokvel. That's honestly what I would do, because you might find that you're going to have the same challenge when you go to other stokvels as well, which means that you need to deal with how you deal with the situation without just walking away, because everybody, or not everybody, but some people will still try and test your boundaries. So you need to make sure that you train that skill so you can approach it accordingly. So that's honestly what I would do, guys. Sit them down, set the scene, set the boundaries and my expectations, tell them that I'm no longer comfortable. And if they continue, I would just say no and not borrow them the money at all. The second one goes, let's say you've always wanted to venture into farming. Oh, this is interesting. And you recently inherited cattle from your father, but the land is an issue. So your partner is also interested in farming, but specifically in poultry. He suggests that you guys go 50-50 in buying land and infrastructure to get this farm up and running. Would you collaborate with a boyfriend in a business venture? And secondly, she says, which precautions would you take to mitigate the risks? Okay, this sounds very exciting, by the way. So guys, I will answer this from my perspective, and I will use my most recent partner, which was my husband before he became my husband. And the straight answer is I would have gotten into a business venture with him, right? Using my circumstances as a context, right? Secondly, I love the fact that she says, what would you put in place in order to mitigate the risk? So she obviously understands that there's a risk, and I'm going to mention that. But before I mention that, I want to mention why I would have gotten into business with my partner, because there's specific reasons behind that. And if those reasons don't match the current relationship that the individual is in, then they might think differently. The first thing is time. I had known him for a number of years, and in those number of years, he had been very consistent in his behavior, in his support, in his how he behaves and reacts to certain things. There was a lot of consistency, so it built trust. That consistency over a long period of time did build trust. And I know that time is not an indication always of how much you can trust a person, but to be honest, for me, that does play a part. I mean, knowing someone more than 5 years and spending most of your time in that 5 years with them, you will obviously identify if you can trust the person or not. So time was a factor. The second thing, like I said, was his behavior and characteristics, and the fact that our values in general align. And when I say values, I mean things like, is the person accountable? Which is something that's important to me. Is the person, transparent in what they do, right? And their finances, but we'll get there. And what are your values and what are my values, and did they align? And because they aligned, that's why I would consider going into business venture. The last thing is financial standing, which is very important. So that's the third thing that influenced my decision when I thought about, would I do this with my partner? Do I know his financial standing, and how does his financial standing look? And in my context, those three things checked out. So I would have definitely gone into this business venture with him. To answer the second part, what are some of the things that I would have done in order to mitigate the risks? The first one is that in as much as I used what I know of him to come to this decision of going into business with him, I would definitely vet my partner the same way I would a stranger of a business partner, right? And I think that's very important, because emotions need to be put aside in order to build a strong, sustainable business. So whatever due diligence I would have done on a stranger, I would do the same thing with my partner. That includes, looking at his credit record, looking at his, finances. Can he even afford this business? And does he have the knowledge and the IP that we need in order to succeed? I wouldn't just say, oh, he's my partner, I trust and I love him, let me get into a business with him. I would vet him like I would a stranger. The second thing is I would definitely consult a professional to help us put together an unbiased, mutually beneficial business agreement, right? And that business agreement would stipulate he's bringing his poultry, I'm bringing my cattle, we are buying land together, this is the goal, this is the vision, the purpose, these are our different responsibilities and all of those things. And the last and one of the most important things that I would do to mitigate risk is that I would definitely agree on an exit plan. Yebo, I would agree on an exit plan, and I would document this and include it as part of the business agreement. So should things go south and this relationship does not work, or even this relationship works but I no longer want to be in business with this individual, how do we exit? Do I buy him out? Does he buy me out? At what cost? And what will we use to determine that cost? Is he allowed to sell his shares to someone else, or must preference be given to me? Those are some of the things that I would put into an exit plan, and I would make sure that this exit plan forms as an addendum to our business agreement, and it is signed as well. Because guys, with relationships, it's all good and well, while things are going nice and everything, to get into business and all of these things and share finances, you give each other, you loan each other money and all of those things. But you need to make sure that you've got a watertight contract that protects you, the both of you, should things go south. So that's what I would do if I was in that situation. The third one is, hi Andy, I am always interested in financial education and contributing to conversations like this, and even asking questions as well. However, I feel like I am already doing everything I possibly can. And it always feels like I won't get any help from financial education because I'm already really committed to the last cent. What would you do if you were me? Wow. Okay, cool. So, I have been in this situation, right? So my interest in financial education and financial literacy started way before I actually started earning money. I started training that skill of managing money and my finances and being interested in how to deal with money long before I actually started earning an income. So I wouldn't wait until I've got disposable income in order to start learning tips and tricks. Especially, guys, this is going to be a shameless plug on this channel. Because on this channel, we don't only talk about investments and all of those things. We also talk about cutting down our expenses, making sure that we live within our means and all of those things. And that's information that someone who is strained could actually benefit from. So I wouldn't wait until, I have a bit of money in order to learn from financial education. If anything, the students who watch my channel are in a better position than the person who started working and then started watching my channel, because they get to gain the skills and the knowledge, and they get to make wiser decisions up front as opposed to correcting their wrongs. So I definitely wouldn't delay. To answer the second part of your question, where you speak about the fact that you're already committed to the last cent and you feel like there isn't anything left, guys, you know that I will always be honest with you. If you look at your budget and there is no room to breathe because you're already overly committed, then chances are that your fixed expenses, you can't afford them. If you tell me that in your budget you've only got your car, your rent, and bare minimum living expenses, and all your income is gone, that means that there's a high probability that you are renting an apartment and you bought a car that you can't afford. That's why it's taking 80% of your income and you've got nothing left. And sometimes it's important to face those realities so you can deal with them head on. Again, if you are watching financial education, I've mentioned this on my channel. You see why it's important to not wait until you have money in order to ask questions, to engage with financial literacy and education. The fourth one says, I sometimes feel like I'm the only one who's feeling the pressure of the rising costs when it comes to groceries. Hey, you are not the only one. I feel like I can't let go though of the brands that I like, especially when it comes to coffee. I just don't see myself going back to Coffee, but everything is just so expensive. What would you do? I feel like this one is, what am I doing currently? Because this is a current situation, guys. I'm living this reality where everything just feels like it's so expensive and it's overpriced, etc. When I give you a very practical example of what I would do, I would use the bank statement exercise on my groceries. So I would take my grocery list, all the groceries that I buy on a monthly basis, and put the brands next to them as well for this specific exercise. And then I would take 3 highlighters, and in orange, I would highlight all of the brands and grocery items that I really feel like I can't let go of. One of the ones that were mentioned here is coffee. Maybe you're drinking Nescafe or Jacobs and you don't want to let go of that. So I'd highlight the coffee. Maybe you don't want to let go of, what else could be very brand specific? Maybe the rice that you use, like you want to use Tastic and you don't want to use any other brand that is more affordable. So I'd highlight that in orange. And then after that, in green, I would highlight some of the things where I do use them, but I'm not really specific on the brand. Example, full cream milk. Maybe I buy my full cream milk from Clover, but I don't mind drinking no name, Checkers full cream milk if there is a price difference. I would highlight those things in green, and the rest of the things on my grocery list would probably be snacks, chocolates, and all of those things, and I would leave those blank. And what I would then do is say, okay, sharp, of my brands, I spend 300 Rand more because I specifically want these brands and I don't want to let go of them. This 300 Rand must then come from the other things I am willing to sacrifice on. So if you are in a tight position in terms of groceries, you can't then commit to brands all round because you know that you can't afford it, right? So you need to look at, of the green things that are highlighted and the things that were not highlighted at all, could you look for cheaper no-name alternatives or cheaper alternatives in order to fit in this space? I'm assuming that this individual is already taking advantage of things like sales, etc., but it still feels too much. So that's the other thing that you can do, because everybody talks about buying in bulk, looking for sales, but sometimes the thing is not on sale. So what I think you can do is do that highlighting exercise, look at the things that you can sacrifice on. For example, I'm not a snacker. I have snacks in the house, but I'm not really a snacker. So I'm willing to drink my good coffee and not buy that many snacks, or buy snacks, but not from a specific place or brand. Do you get what I mean? What are you willing to sacrifice in order to stick to this? You know you can't have it all. That's just a reality that you need to accept. So this exercise allows you to still have what's going to give you the most value while cutting down the things that you don't really care about. Number 5 says, hi Andi, I have a work or career predicament. I feel like the relationship I have with my manager is beyond repairs and I am not going to develop or grow anymore under her wing. However, I do earn really well, so it's been difficult to apply for other jobs and stay at the same level. What would you do? Sure. Okay. The first thing is, I'm assuming that you've tried everything you can do, that this relationship cannot be repaired. So if I am in this situation, then number 1 is I would really like to, in this very fragile situation, although difficult, conceal my feelings. So I would like to not make this about my feelings and make it very practical and very factual, because I know for a fact that the type of manager that you have really influences the opportunities that are open to you and how far you can go, guys. Your manager can really push you forward, or they can also hold you down. And I say this because I've been managed and also because I'm a manager. So I know the type of influence that management holds. So you need to be very factual, very practical about this. Try and remove the feelings from it. That's what I would do. I would remove the feelings from it. That's the first thing. And try and look at, okay, what don't I like? What do I like? What is the situation like from a factual perspective? Not things that I feel like are happening, right? Another thing that I would do is, in order to cover myself, I would start communicating with my manager via email for most things, especially where there's conflict or there's areas where we disagree. I would make sure that everything is on email so that things are not taken out of context because of external influence and feelings that we have towards each other. For example, hi so-and-so, as per discussion, you have asked me to do this. This is what I've done. You said by this time. I would put a lot on email and paper to make sure that if ish hits the fan, I've got factual proof that I've been doing my job to the greatest of my ability. And also when there was conflict, it was resolved in this manner, etc. So I definitely keep a lot of things on email. The next thing that I would do is, guys, I would be sure not to mess up on my job. That's another thing. I would make double, triple sure that I don't mess up on my job, especially when I know that maybe my mess up won't be dealt with fairly or won't be dealt with, the same way that a mess up would be dealt with for another individual. So I would make sure I perform. And I think employees usually do the opposite. When you know that someone's out to get you, your work starts slipping. But if you start slipping, that's when, things go haywire. So I would make sure that I'm on par in terms of my delivery. The last thing, the second last thing I would do is I would obviously start looking for other opportunities. Like I said, I respect the influence that management has in a working relationship. So I would start looking for other opportunities. I'd dust up my CV, start looking for other opportunities. And I would also be very proactive in contacting my networks in the industry to say, hi guys, I am looking out for opportunities and I would like to, join another team. And I'd put a beautiful reason as to why, like, I feel like I've reached the ceiling in terms of my current job. I'm looking to grow and all of those things. I would not tell anyone that it's because of my manager. Please don't do that. Please don't go to an interview or a conversation and tell a person or a hiring manager how uncomfortable your existing relationship is and all of that stuff. Guys, it doesn't work in your favor. I'll tell you now, it does not work in your favor. I know you're trying to be super honest, but it does not work in your favor when you have a very emotional, teary conversation as opposed to being factual. You can mention that you feel like you can't grow and there isn't opportunities to grow, but don't make it about the individual, because the other person on the other side will think that it will probably be them next, So try and manage that as well. The last thing that I would do is I would beef up my emergency fund. I would make sure that I cut down my living expenses. I beef up my emergency fund so that if ish really hits the fan, I know that I've got the funds in order to take a break, because sometimes the work environment becomes so toxic that you can't wait for an exit, you can't wait for a new opportunity. You really need to get out. And for that, you need money. So that's the second thing I would do. And then the last one says, it's a very long one, and I'm in a very weird stage of my career. I was in an interview. I was in lots of interviews last year, which I unfortunately didn't succeed in. But since then, I've seen you as someone that I can learn from within our industry. Aww. So my first job, I spent 8 months, and after that, they let me go. Besides the politics behind it, I just really wasn't performing in that job, and that was the reason they let me go. I've obviously learned a lot since then, but I've been having so much trouble getting back into the industry. And I learned so much during my RE5 preparation that I'm completely discouraged. So if this person is doing RE5, they're obviously in the financial services industry. Hence I've been watching you because I'm in the same industry. On top of not passing my improvement plan I'm not going to say the company name, but he mentioned the company name. I also got a credit card during my stay there, which I then defaulted on. And I'd do interviews and I wouldn't get offers because of my credit record. Funny enough, I just got out of this default status this month because I paid my last installment. But because I'm still unemployed, it hasn't been easy. So I wanted to ask, number one, with interviews going forward, should I mention that my contract was terminated because of my performance at that job? And secondly, should I have carried on with applications knowing what would happen during the vetting process because I was still in default status? Whew, okay, this is a mouthful. The first question is, this is actually a question, but I think it's also what I would do. I will answer it in what I would do. With interviews going forward, should I mention that my contract was terminated because of performance? So firstly, I'm really sorry that this happened to you. It's unfortunate that when you don't have an income, you need debt to look for jobs, to buy clothes for interviews and all of those things, or when you start a job. And then, so you need money to get a job, and then you can't get the job because you didn't have money. So that's really sad. I do apologize for that, and I sympathize with your situation. And I'm so proud of you for paying off that debt. Even without earning an income, you prioritized it, which I think is super, super cool. So well done on that. The first thing is, should you be honest is the question. Should I be honest? So I don't believe in lying, like blatantly lying, because my belief is that the truth will always come out, specifically in your situation, because you are in a trainee program. So you've only got one reference on your CV probably. And trust me, that hiring manager will call that reference and ask about you. And if performance was an indicated official thing for letting you go, and you were asked that in the interview and you just did not mention it at all, it will not look good on your honesty levels, right? So I don't think you should lie about your performance. That said, I don't think you should go there and say, oh, my performance was poor and they let me go, and leave it at that. I would start by saying, setting the scene and letting the individual know of why I didn't perform. So, for example, I would ask myself, why didn't I perform? Was it because of the lack of a support structure? Was it too high pressure too soon? Did I not have the right knowledge and skills? What was my reason for not performing? And then I would rather position that and say, look, this contract was not made permanent because of a number of things. Personally, I did struggle at first to keep up because of 1, 2, 3, which are the things that I've mentioned that are relevant, right? So I'd mention why I struggle to keep up so that if I on the other side, as a hiring person looking into the situation, I can be like, okay, shame, lack of support structure, too young, too inexperienced, whatever it was, that was the reason behind performance being a challenge. And again, I wouldn't say I didn't perform. I would say that my performance was a challenge against the average, and these are some of the reasons why. And I would add on to say, this is what I've since done to rectify that and to improve on that. So you show the positive side. So I wouldn't lie, but also my positioning would be in that manner. Then the second question is, let me just go back. The second part of the question said, should I have carried on with applications knowing what would happen during the vetting process? So this is a very tricky one because obviously you want to get a job because you want to pay off the debt, but then the debt is what's stopping you from getting the job. So what I would have done in this situation is I would have tried to pause, to be honest. I would have tried to pause in terms of seeking applications, especially when I know that I'm being declined or rejected because of my credit record. The reason I say that is because companies keep a database of applicants and interviews and all of those things, and especially assessments and credit records. So if you apply again to the same company, they are going to notice that this is the credit record that you had, and you were taken out of the interview process the last time because of this reason. So it won't look bad on your track record. And if you keep applying again and again, and they see multiple applications, and the status keeps flagging that you've got a bad credit record, you're sort of ruining your chances with that opportunity. So I know that it's not always easy, but what I would have done is I would have paused and focused on fixing the credit record before. For example, I would have gotten a job outside of the industry, even if it's waitressing or just a part-time job, tutoring, something that doesn't have anything to do with the industry, and I would have used that income to cover my debt so that when I apply again to companies, my credit record is good like it is now for you, and I stand a better chance. Or because they do keep they do keep this in their database, and you don't want to be put on the back foot because of something that you've already rectified. And lastly, even though you didn't ask, I would like to add on in terms of what I think should happen now. Now that the credit record is clear, it obviously, like I said, you can apply for new opportunities, but the existing companies will probably still have that. So what I would do is I would write a cover letter, and I would put together my CV with my cover letter. And I would honestly be honest in my cover letter that this is what happened. Like, I got into debt because I was unemployed, and I needed to settle into my first job and all of those things. And because I lost my contract, I wasn't able to pay my bills. And this is the situation that I find myself in now. But I really have rectified this in this way. And I'm looking for a good opportunity, and I'm willing to start from the bottom and work myself up. And I would approach actual individuals on LinkedIn with that scenario of honesty. Obviously, you don't start there. You greet someone, you let them know that you would like to have a discussion about an opportunity, identify the right people, and I would go in with that honesty first. Because the thing with going the general route is that the person hasn't met you as an individual, so it's easy for them to say bad credit record out because they don't know the context. But if you manage the conversation up front by creating context and sort of pulling at their heartstrings, for a lack of a better word, you might stand a better chance. I don't know if it's 100% foolproof, but it is an option that you can try. And I really do hope that that does help. And I really do hope that whatever else that we've mentioned does give you like a hint in terms of what direction that you can take. Guys, thank you so much for watching our first episode of What Would Andi Do? The next one depends on you, and when you let me know some of your money and adulting scenarios that you would like my perspective and my insight on. But I'm always happy to share. Just drop them down in the comment section, DM me on Instagram, or send me an email, and I'll definitely include it in the next run. If you enjoyed this video, as per usual, give it a huge thumbs up. And if you haven't done so, please consider subscribing to the channel so we can see you in other videos as well. Bye.